Hey guys, it's Amber. So today we are doing something a little different. This palette has been out for a while, but I think it's been one of the most controversial palettes that have ever hit the market because people are so polarized. And I did not receive this in PR, but I did receive it as a gift from a subscriber who wanted my genuine opinion on it. No strings attached as far as positive, negative reviews. She just generally wanted to know what I thought. I have had this for a few weeks. You know, I've kind of mentioned this a couple times because I really wanted to use it and know what my thoughts were before I put a review video together. I didn't want to just do a quick first impressions. I wanted to be able to use each of the colors several times, use them alone, use them together, see how they blend. And so I feel like I'm finally ready to do a thorough review. Now, I know some of you might not even care about this right now. You're like, dude, this is so 2017. But I really enjoyed testing out this palette and figuring out how I felt about it because it was something I was really interested in as far as it's so polarizing. Will I love it? Will I hate it? I wanted to make an opinion for myself. So before I begin, I just want to say that I'm not going to let people bash other people on this video. If you hate this palette with an undying passion, that's totally fine. If you love this palette with an undying passion, that's totally fine. I'm not going to go to any absolutes. I'm not going to say that any influencer that hates this palette is lying or is crap or can't do makeup. On the other hand, I'm not going to say that any influencer that loves this palette is just trying to kiss butt and stay on PR. Those are two opposite ends of the spectrum, and I am just not willing to go there because I feel like everyone can have their own personal opinion, and I respect other people's opinions. So if you can't respect my opinion or other people's opinions about this palette, or if you don't agree and you can't talk nicely, then you can just exit out. Now that I've gotten that big giant disclaimer out of the way, if you didn't know already, this is a Subculture by Anastasia Beverly Hills. When it was released, a lot of people had complaints of powderiness. They had complaints of the pigments kind of bunching up and deepening a little or oxidizing. And there was also a lot of complaints that it was just not blendable and it was hard to work with. Since then, Anastasia Beverly Hills came out and said, I know I'm probably saying that wrong, and I'm sorry. Since then, ABH came out and said that these are more of a pressed pigment, that they are meant to be worked with a little differently. Now, if they would have said that in the beginning, do I feel like that would have changed people's opinions? Yes, because Makeup Geek just released some pressed pigments. In her launch post, she literally said, these are pigments. She said that they will deepen as you blend them, that they're very pigmented, they don't work as a typical eyeshadow, you have to use them a little differently. And so I felt like people were like, okay, that's what we expect. When this came out, people were not expecting that. And so they didn't want to change the way they did their eyeshadow to make this work. And I do feel like there are some tips and tricks to make this work. But the bottom line is if you don't want to do anything different to make your eyeshadow work, then you don't have to. And if you're not someone who wants to take the time to take these colors and you like these colors enough to make them work on your eye, then nothing I'm going to say is going to change your mind. But if you're someone like me who doesn't mind using a little different technique to make something work, then maybe you'll enjoy this. So I'm actually going to start off a little differently. I had some feedback from my last video that people would like to see the tutorial first. So I'm actually going to do a quick eye tutorial with this and show you a little bit different look than I think everyone else has done. And then I'm going to go through my review, my swatches. I'll put timestamps down below, so if you're not interested in the tutorial, you can just skip to the review part. And then at the end, I'm actually going to do another tutorial I'm going to film on a separate day of a little bit more in-depth look. Hopefully there's something for everyone. If you're not interested in this palette, you just want to hear me chit chat, then just, hey, come hang out with me and talk about makeup. All right, as you can see, I already have the rest of my face makeup on. I'm just going to head right into it. I am going to be using some of these e.l.f. little sticky sheets on the side here. Of course, they're totally extra. You could just use tape. But I've just been kind of trying these out, and I thought it would be fun to kind of show you how these work. Now, before I got this palette, my lovely, I'd say, friend and subscriber, because we've chatted a little bit, she actually asked me would I be interested in reviewing this palette, and I thought that was kind of nice because I know there are some people who probably don't have any interest. So I went into getting this palette knowing that there was going to be a little bit of challenge involved. Like I said, I knew that going into it, and I was okay with the fact that it might not be perfect and that I might not even like it. So first off, I'm just going to add some eye primer. Next, I'm going to take a large fluffy brush and I'm going to go into the shade called Dawn, and I'm just barely tapping, and you can see that there's some powder. That's why I wanted to show you this. There is some powder there, but I don't feel like it's just raining down. If I wanted to swirl my brush in there, I definitely could and create a lot of excess powder, but I don't want to waste my product, so I'm not going to do that. And I honestly felt like if I just kind of tapped and kind of rolled my brush like this, it kind of picked it up, and I was fine doing that. Again, some of you are going to be like, ain't nobody got time for this, and I totally understand. So I am just applying this in the crease. But I think it's important for you guys to see the brush going in the pigment, so you can see that if I just kind of tap and kind of roll, yes, there's a little powder kickoff, but it's not raining down. But you could make it do that if you really wanted to. And there also is the whole, was there a bad batch issue, which, I don't know. Did some people get different batches of palettes? I don't know. I think that's only something that the company itself will know. I'm just holding the brush on the tip just to create a light hand. When you hold the brush up close, it tends to make a little bit rougher strokes. When you hold it at the tip, you tend to get a little bit lighter, softer strokes. So that is what I'm doing. All right, next I'm going to go into the shade All Star right here. I didn't find this one to be exceptionally powdery. My first time using this shadow, I did find that I had a little bit of darkening when I used a more pointed brush. So this, I would say personally, is a little bit more finicky shadow in the palette, but I only had that deepening where it started to go a little dark the very first time I used it. And I used this brush, which I typically love, versus a little bit more fluffy brush. Something about the point on it and the pressure I was applying, it did make it go a little dark in the crease. But when I tried again and just thought, okay, use a softer hand, I didn't have any problems. All right, now I'm going to go into the shade Rowdy, and I'm just gonna tap it once, and then I'm gonna dust off. Same brush, and I'm just gonna go on the outer corner. Then if you get to a point where you need to blend, but you've still got pigment on your brush, where these are more pigmented, it's always good to have a clean blending brush if you need some extra blending work, just to softly blend it out, versus if you have something that's not quite as pigmented, you can get away with just blending with that brush. But it's really, you know, good to have a clean blending brush just on hand, just to kind of touch up anywhere you feel like you need it. Now we are going to go into Edge right here. We're going to be putting this on the lid. So we're actually going for an all basically matte look except for the inner corner. Then I'm just going to take a little bit of the All Star, which is the red shade, and just kind of go back and kind of work that corner right here just to kind of blend it together a little. And then I'm going to just grab a new fine brush, and I'm going to take these off. Ta-da! Gave me kind of a nice sharp line. I am going to soften that out just a tiny bit. I'm going to just take some of the Dawn shade and just barely. All right, I'm going to take some of the All Star and put that under the lash line. And then to pop the inner corners, I'm going to go in with Electric. I'm using a more synthetic feeling, more like a concealer brush to pick this up, because it is a little bit like a pressed, it's like a little bit of that crumbly, it's very reminiscent of like the Huda Beauty dupe Athena palette, like that kind of crumbly duochrome. It's a very interesting texture of shadow, basically. And I'm going to pop that in the inner corners, just like that. Okay, so I'm just going to do my tight line and water line and add some mascara, and I'll be right back. All right, so here is my first finished look. Okay, for my second look, I'm going to be going into more of the greens and the gold. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned for the end of the video. But for now, let's go over what my thoughts are. Alright, so summarizing my thoughts, I feel like this palette is very beautiful. I feel like I've been able to make a lot of everyday looks. So when I go into like New Wave and Dawn and even a little bit of Fudge, I can put Electric or Adorn on the lid and get a very nice everyday look. Nothing, they don't all have to be this glam. I also feel like, on the other hand, I can get really deep dark smoky eyes using Rowdy, Access, and even with the All-Star, you know, it came out a little more smoky. So I feel like the flexibility is there as far as day and evening if you like these types of tones. If you're someone who doesn't like greens and yellows together, you're not going to like that. The problem I see people coming into is like where today I mix the yellow and the red. These are colors that naturally when you mix them together, you're going to get a color in between them that actually works. Versus if you go into the green and the red, these are complementary colors, which means when you mix complementary colors together, they turn brown. So you might say, why do you have those in the same palette? Well, there's lots of palettes that have colors that maybe aren't the best to mix directly together. So these are the shades that are gonna, I got a way bigger swatch this time. These are gonna be the shades that when you mix together, you're gonna get, in this case, it almost goes a little bit more blue. But you're going to muddy your colors a little bit if you decide to mix those two together. So for me, it's better to do a cut crease or to just softly blend them, put a shimmer in between them, use one on the lash line. There's other ways that I feel like you can use those same colors together, but I feel like if you go into it thinking, I want to use yellow, red, and green, it is going to get a little muddy just for the science of their complementary colors. Now, going through each color individually, the one color I like the least is Cube. And it's not because I don't like the shade, because I actually feel like it's very pretty and unique for what it is. Something to go over other shades. But I feel like really the only color in the palette it works with is All-Star. So when I swatch All-Star, it's got that nice pretty rosy tone. So if I go into Cube and put it over All-Star, it makes a gorgeous pinky shift. But I feel like that's really the only way I can use it other than an inner corner highlight. But even then, when I'm using the greens, I don't really love a pink, white, yellow corner highlight. So for me, it's an interesting shade I feel like I could use, but I don't necessarily think that I would use it in conjunction with some of these other deeper yellows and greens. Dawn I really like. It is one of the softest pressed shadows, so you are going to get the most fallout with this, so you do have to do what I said, like the tap and roll method works really well for me, but this is the shade that has been infamously tapped down to pan because it is loosely packed. Destiny is more of an olive green, and it has a pretty nice consistency. I felt like when I paired it with the browns, it kind of just blended together and I didn't, you know, get the real impact of it. So this is one of the shades where I feel like if I do just this and the gold, it makes it work, or if I work it into these other greens. But putting this with the brown, it just kind of got lost in translation. So it's not a favorite for me, but it definitely works if you put the green and then you get a little of the gold next to it. You definitely can make a look with those work. Or like I said, mix it with the other green shades as kind of like a transition. That is also really beautiful. As a one to go with more of the brown shades, it didn't really work as well for me. Adorn is beautiful. I mean, You guys can see it right here. It's gorgeous. It's pigmented. I really like it. It's kind of a deep bronzy gold. All-Star was the one shade that I felt like did oxidize a little, as far as, if that's what you want to call it. It did deepen when I used a more harsh, thick or cheaper brush. If you have those harsh bristles, there's something about those that will make it deepen up too much. But I found when I used a nicer brush that was really loosely packed that I didn't have as many problems with that. It's still a little bit of a to blend out, I'll be honest. It is not the most, it doesn't blend out to me as well as some of the modern Renaissance colors do, but that's why I wanted to use this so you guys could see. Does it take a little bit more blending and softness? Yes. So you just have to use that knowledge, and you can decide if that's a shadow you want to work with or not. Mercury was also a shadow that I like, but I have to be careful with. This is one that I felt like if I didn't have a good base down could get a little patchy. But overall, even though I like this shade and it's a good kind of blending out shade, it's not one that's my favorite because it's just kind of a cool brown. It's not that exciting, but it definitely has its place as far as stapling looks. It's great to pair with these for a more everyday basic look, and as long as you use a light hand, it works really well. Axis is really a pretty shade. It's got this nice deep green. I really like it. I love that it has that blue pigment. There is a very similar color to this in the e.l.f. Smoked palette, so if this is the one you like, then you could check that out instead because it's a cheaper dupe. But that being said, I like this. I like that there's so many mattes in this palette overall because for my hooded eyes, that works really well. Rowdy is good how I used it today as far as deepening the outer corners. It is, all of these are super pigmented. So I mean, like a one tap and go is definitely where you need to be with these shadows. Edge, I really like. I like that it's a bold yellow. I like that it doesn't have shimmer in it. I like that it's different than other things that I've seen. And even though it doesn't come out super, super yellow, I like how it looks with this look. Now, if I wanted this to pop yellow, all I would need to do is put a concealer base down, cut out the crease, and really lay it on, and you would get a yellow, yellow, yellow. The way I've applied it, I've blended it into the red, and I've softened it down so it's not showing a bright, bright yellow, but you can use it as a bright, bright yellow depending on what your base is. Untamed is also a really pretty green. This one is a little bit more of a forest green, where this is more of a blue green. Again, I didn't really have any issues blending this. I really like this shade. I feel like it's a good addition to the palette. New Wave, I love New Wave. I love this orangey shade. This is one that is so beautiful when paired with these greens because the orangey and the greens, it blends really well when you have those. You see this look a lot with the green and the oranges together. I just think they complement each other really well. Fudge is a really nice warm brown. I felt like it was blendable. It's got the nice warm tones. It works really well with New Wave, Edge. All these work really well together, so I do like this. Out of the two browns, I like Fudge a little better than Mercury. Electric, I love. I mean, yes, it's a crumbly textured shadow, and you could probably use I've got green on my finger. You could probably use like a sticky base or a glitter primer with it, but I like the effect of it. I don't remember who it was that said it was more like a topper, and that's what I would say. It's something just to tap on top of your lid, or like today, I tapped it in my inner corners and it just gives that little pop. But I do feel like it needs something, so you definitely could use Edge or New Wave and then top this over it. Very beautiful. Roxy, I also love. I love this orangey shade. I feel like it's beautiful. It's such a nice peach color. It just melts right into the skin, and when you're blending it out for a transition shade, it is just perfect. So overall for me, even though there's some workability issues, there's Mercury that I don't love as much, All-Star that can be a little sticky. I feel like there is a much more, personally, positives than negatives. I like using this palette. I found like I could make lots of different looks. I feel like they all tend to be a little bit more on the smoky side, but I'm okay with that. You know, I don't mind being a little more glam. If you're someone who is an everyday kind of neutral eye look, is this a must-have? No. This is going to be for someone who likes to experiment with colors, who has a little bit more time to play with makeup, and likes to wear something that might have a little more of an exotic look versus your typical Too Faced natural eyes. You know, every color is going to give you a nice basic look. This is more for quick to go looks. This is more for someone who likes to dabble and try new things and is okay being a little patient. Now that I've given you guys the swatches of this and also my thoughts and feelings about the palette, let's go ahead to the second makeup look. All right, so thanks for joining me for my final look. I'm gonna start off by blinking out my eyelids using NYX White HD eyeshadow base. For any of you OG subscribers of mine, you know this throws me back to middle school days when I actually wore makeup like this. Alright, I'm going to start by going into Dawn, and I'm going to kind of set this, but only from the crease and up. Alright, now I'm going to go into a little bit of edge. You can see there's not a lot of fallout when I just touch it. It seems to be pressed pretty well. Then I'm going to go into Roxy. Really like this shade. I feel like these ones blend out much easier than All Star. And this is an actual, just a travel brush. This is a Sedona Lace EB13. Now on an e.l.f. blending brush, I'm going to go a little bit into Fudge. Just tap into that. Alright, so I've got the orangey yellowness and anchored into a little bit of brown. So now I'm going to go back into my NYX eyeshadow base with a more synthetic brush. And I'm going to carve out a little bit of a cut crease. And I want to take it up a little higher than my natural crease. Not too high, but just enough because as I've tested this out, it's going to go up there anyway, so it's nice to get just a tiny bit above so when I open my eye, it's not going to be completely hidden. A lot of times I've seen people just kind of put it on their lid and then just kind of let their eye naturally blink and see where it starts going and then take it from there. I think with everyone's eyes, the sweet spot is a little different. Mine are hooded, so I have to be careful with that. Obviously, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this right now, but if you think I'm doing it too high or too low, you're probably right for you, you know? Just got to do what works for you. Now that I've kind of mapped out where I want my cut crease to go, roughly, I'm going to take the shade Untamed, and I'm going to put that all over my lid with a flat shader brush. So then I just kind of touched up a little bit along the line so I can get that definition that I want. Now, I think this is really pretty for just a smoky eye using that green. If you don't have anything else to use, what I would suggest is if you wanted to take it to the next level, which is what I'm going to do, you could take a little bit of a setting spray and then get your brush wet. It'd have to be a really fine brush and go into this color Adorn. And you can really make a pretty line with that and outline the cut crease. And I have tried it that way, but it pops a little more if you use an actual glitter liner. So that's what I'm going to use. This one is the Santee Diamond Eyeliner in Gold. It's from Shop Massé. So we're going to have a little fun with this. I'm gonna add just a little gold detail like on that half cut crease. And then I'm just gonna take a little bit of Untamed under the lash line. So I'm just gonna add tight line eyeliner and waterline eyeliner so I don't cover this up, and I'll be right back. All right, then just to finish off, I'm going to put a little bit of Adorn in my inner corners. So it's not gonna be a crazy bright highlight, just so it doesn't take the attention off the gold glitter that we got going on here, you know what I mean? But it kind of blends that gold together. Actually, if you want it to be super extra, we just put a little tiny splash of this on there. So to finish off the lips, I use this Ades lip gloss from my BoxyCharm. It's just like a thick lip gloss. And on my cheeks, I have Rockateur from Benefit and Hoola. I need some highlighter. I'm going to go with the Essence Pure Nude highlighter. Something, again, that's not crazy highlighting. That is everything. So here's how it looks. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and enjoyed my feedback. Remember just to be nice because everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Thank you guys so much for watching. Whether you're into subculture or not, I appreciate you guys spending this time with me. Have a wonderful day. Bye!